Welcome to the Pineapple Pinup, the Hot Wife Life podcast. On today's podcast, I'm going to talk about foreplay. I'm going to talk about play, and then I'll probably get into post play. Recently, I realized that I have not had a set of balls in my mouth for a very long time until this past play session I had with Josh. It dawned on me that my ability to be in foreplay is diminished entirely. We go to these parties, and these parties are basically fuck parties. So when you show up there, it's like you're pre-seduced, okay? You don't need anyone to actually seduce you. You don't need anyone to bring on the foreplay. You don't need anyone to convince you that this is what we're doing, because you're there to do the thing that you're there to do. So my foreplay game has become almost non-existent. And sometimes when my husband is feeling frisky and is coming at me, I'm literally confused as to what he's doing. I'm genuinely like, what's happening? And that is beginning to feel a little harsh, I guess. So the other day, and again, this happens too when I have a meetup, when I have a play date. We're pre-seduced, okay? And so I have gotten into a routine where they show up, we all strip, I put a dick in my mouth, then I lay down on the bed, they suck my clit for a little bit, and then we're off to the races. So I'm beginning to wonder if foreplay is something that just gets lost as you get older. Um, is it something that is, because I know for sure making out is almost non-existent. Now, mind you, I made out with my husband the other day, um, because it was a lazy Sunday morning in our bed and neither one of us had to get up. And it was just this warm, cuddly makeout session, and it was awesome. There was no expectation, there was no pushing it further. It was just a truly genuine makeout session, and it was great. It gave us all of those connectivity moments and all that other stuff. And whatever happened to the magic of a makeout session? Because when you were a teenager, that was the thing. I mean, it was make out for hours kind of stuff. But as you get older and sex becomes more and more regular, more and more part of your world, almost every single long kiss feels like it's going to eventually end up with penis meet vagina. Okay. So the other day when Josh was here, I realized that I have an entire bag of tricks. I have an entire portfolio of moves that I have not had to bring out in way too long. So when I'm sucking his balls into my mouth, it made me realize that there are so many things that I, as a lover, have developed throughout the years that do not get utilized. They just don't. They don't get utilized because there's no need for them. We all show up. We all know what we're there for. We're all doing whatever it is that we're doing. So I'm kind of baffled right now as to how to bring foreplay back, how to bring back those exciting moments that were so much a part of foreplay before the lifestyle. Because I don't know about any of you, but warm up for me is give me the hook and let's go. Okay? Like, so what is it that we lose when we're all on the exact same page? What is it that we miss? What are these opportunities to explore and find the places that make him shiver? Find the places. The one thing I really, really miss is that spot between right where your neck and your shoulder meet, at the kind of at the back, where when somebody puts their mouth on it and sucks it ever so gently, it becomes your entire world. What's interesting to me is that I have made out with my husband a couple of different times actually in the recently, and it has been that full devotion to exploration and lingering kisses, and that I'm not expecting to have a penis in my vagina because we're sitting in a hot tub kind of feeling. Because I don't know about any of the women out there, but honestly, if somebody tries to put their penis in your vagina in a hot tub or a spa, it's basically like asking for your entire vagina to be like an entire layer of skin removed. It's weird because you're in water and you would think, but it's really drying and it really just it doesn't feel super comfortable. So unless you can get elevated out of the water, then it's really not the best place to be messing around. Anyway, so I have been really exploring what I've lost in my my ability to seduce. Those moments when your fingernails are gliding down his thigh, and those moments when you just ever so slightly graze the peritoneum with your fingernail. The that moment where there's a little bit of fear in them that you're going to go back door. There's something so incredibly nostalgic about that lack of foreplay that it's kind of making me think about it. It's making me try to remember all those moments of exploration, what I learned, what I discovered about the human body, what I discovered about my own body through the way that I played with their body. It is without a doubt the most sexy and romantic part of sex, but at a play party, on a play date, it kind of feels really unnecessary. Like, let's just get to the pleasure. You know what I mean? But am I missing it? Am I missing that buildup? Would that buildup make the pleasure, the intense erotic orgasm more intense, more erotic, more exciting? Would it be more intimate? Would it be more connected? Now, I think that might be part of my problem. Intimacy and connection are not something I really, really seek out. I don't know if it's because I'm a Capricorn. I don't know if it's because my childhood trauma has made it too difficult for me to connect with other humans, or if it just feels like a waste of time. I don't know. I don't know what it is about me that doesn't desire intimacy or connection. But what's really crazy is you will develop that intimacy. You will develop that connection even if you never participate with foreplay, even if you never do the lead up exploration moments. Okay. And I know this because there is an intimacy between Jeff and I. There is an intimacy between Josh and I. It's not the same. It's very different. And but it is real and it is there and it is a kinship. It is an understanding of one another. And I don't I don't know if it's just repetition or if it's something where having sex allowed some of my walls to fall down. All I do know is that we have begun to rush. We've begun to rush everything. We watch our shows on demand. We wait until all of the shows are there so that we don't have to wait on a cliffhanger. We have become binge watchers, binge fuckers. We have become binge people who get it all in one lump sum so that we can get it in there, get it done, and then we're finished. And is that the same thing that we're doing in the lifestyle? Are we becoming people who can't feel anticipation or linger in that anticipation? Which is kind of interesting because that's where my husband lives at these parties. My husband lives in anticipation. He lives in that moment of ache, that moment of want, that moment of emotional upheaval because he's sitting there feeling a little bit jealous, very, very turned on, thinking about when it will be his turn to reclaim me. My husband and stags and cucks like him are living in that moment of anticipation, of buildup, of basically foreplay for hours while I'm in the midst of binge fucking. And that's an interesting note because my husband never misses a beat on the foreplay. He never misses a beat on the seduction, to the point that sometimes I'm really confused by it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? Oh, are we fucking? Okay, well, let's get to fucking. And I don't know if I can unravel my brain from instant gratification. And that's something I would really, really like to explore. Can you unravel your brain from instant gratification? Can you sit on a cliffhanger and wait for the next episode? Huh. Anyway, it's all very interesting and all very woot woo woo. So my last play date with Josh, he laid back on the bed and gave me a new angle at which to come at him, to warm things up, if you will. And it exposed his balls to me. And as I moved up his body and I ran my fingernails on his thigh and I licked his scrotum ever so gently and then pulled his balls into my mouth one by one, I realized in that moment that I'd stopped exploring. I'd stopped creating that buildup, that will she or won't she put my dick in her mouth? Will she or won't she? Where's she going now? What is happening? Like, I don't give any of that to them. And so I made a concerted effort to engage in some foreplay, in some intimacy. I am not a big kisser. I don't do a lot of kissing um, with anyone besides my husband. And that's because of the fact that I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a great kisser. I'm fumbling around, like trying to figure out what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And I don't think in the moment of kissing, you should be thinking that much. And I don't have a problem shutting off my brain with my husband, but I kind of have a problem shutting off my brain with other people in that moment when we're mouth to mouth. And I'm over analyzing every minute of it, every second, every nuance, every, wow, that lip is really soft. I wonder if he uses chapstick. Like what is that? What is that brain dysfunction that can't put me in this intimate moment, fully in the moment? I am trying to get better at it though. So I did try with Josh this last time to utilize some of the tricks that were in my bag, to use my, I have false nails and they're adorable, but they're not painful and they create a friction on the skin that's not super scratchy, not super deep, but it just sort of tantalizes and it leaves a trail of shivery lightning bolts on the skin nerves. And it wakes everything up and it brings the blood flow and it creates this heat. So, utilizing my fingernails, I ran them up and down his thighs while I was sucking on his balls and creating this moment where his cock was straining to be in my mouth. And then I used my mouth to go up and down the length of his girthy cock and tried very hard to get that cock deep into my throat. It didn't work, but I got further and further each time I tried. I got closer and closer to that moment when my lips touched his pubic bone, like when it got that close that my mouth was on his pubis. It kept getting closer, but I never quite reached it. And then I did other things, like I wrapped my massive tits around his cock and just let him feel that warm hug from my abundant flesh. It was something that, I mean, obviously, I have a great set of tits that will wrap around a cock, will wrap around a head, really. Like I can smother people, and utilizing my tit flesh to create more heat, more desire, more unfulfilled passion, um, was just an opportunity that I had wasted in the past. So this time I decided to really play with him, play with his body, find some of those nooks and crannies. Now, mind you, I got very easily distracted because there was a massive cock in my face, and the only thing I wanted to do was slide down that cock. Oh my God. So that's what I did. I slid down that cock and I rode him for a very, very long time. I had probably 3 orgasms riding him. Now that doesn't mean much because I can like I am not a hard sell for orgasming. I am severely like I'm an easy girl in probably almost every term. But it was exciting because I had my fingers in his, like, scratching his scalp, and every time I was grinding, I was gripping his arms, or I was really truly exploring his body. I was really truly utilizing my body to tantalize his body in a way that I probably had neglected in the past because we were all getting what we were there for, the pleasure. We were all getting, and I'm not kidding you. I made him like we orgasmed, like I orgasmed. I can't even count how many times. He orgasmed 3 times. It was 3 times that I got this man up and down. And that to me was extraordinary because it just it was hot and sweaty and warm and intimate, and I was so much more connected to him and he was so much more connected to me because I had taken the time to allow for some intimacy, to allow for some foreplay, to allow for some tantalization, to allow things to build in a way that I had neglected in the past. And I don't know if that's going to change my behavior moving forward, especially not at parties, because at parties there's just not enough time, or like there's some missing key elements like space. And the fact that other people need to use the same space you're probably in. So that is my plan. my plan going forward is to create more of the nails on the back, slowly stroking, sliding, grazing, more moments when I'm playing with their earlobe, more kisses on the neck, right where the neck and the shoulder meet, more tongue against that nerve right there that brings everything together. It's the number one erogenous zone, in case you boys are missing it. Right there between where the neck and the shoulder meet is a very, very erogenous area. It goes all the way up to the base of the ear, which is why the ears are usually so sensitive. It is something that is kind of universal, and so I feel like I might try. I might try to give more of that anticipation, because the results unmatched. I mean, that we were so connected that when he came the third time, I could literally feel he and I exploding. The one thing that I did do is I clamped down so hard on his cock that I pulled I pulled his condom off. Um and he had to go fishing for it. But that's because that's kind of something that happens when you're clamping down. It just, like, anyway, not the point. But it is without a doubt some chemistry, some ionization that is happening between two bodies when you fully allow for touching and foreplay, that I don't know, it I think it enhanced everything just a little bit more. We talked about cuck cleanup being a form of submission that cucks really, really do enjoy. The difference between a cuck and a stag, I wanted to kind of get into this a little bit. The difference between a cuck and a stag is not so much as submissive as a cuck is. Um, I do not tend to put my husband in a submissive role. Um, and that's just our dynamic. Our dynamic is very partnershipy. So I don't feel the need to put him in a submissive role. That being said, it doesn't mean that I don't give him moments to submit, because I do. So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that that submission, stagger cuck, have been utilized with us. So obviously, cuck cleanup is a big one. That moment when he is removing the evidence of the other man, or playing in the debris of the other man, when his cock is sloshing around in the wetness that is left over, the sloppy seconds kind of vibe, the cream pie, if you will. Those are all moments of submission that my husband participates in and gets really off on. Now let's talk about the cock cage. Um, I don't really have a cage for my husband, but I do have a an inhibitor that inhibits his ability to get an erection. And this is something that there are people who think that it's dangerous or think that it's, for the most part, it's not super dangerous. You're just preventing the fully engorged, like the ability for the cock to engorge. And it just means that the blood's going to go somewhere else. It doesn't, usually, it can help. Um, I don't know enough about the science of it to be able to get too deep into it, but I do know from everything I have read and researched that the cages, they're not dangerous. They're not comfortable, and you should never wear one for too long, but they're it's not like when you take a Viagra and you get hard for 4 hours that like, it can't damage you like that. So you have more damage that can happen from being too long hard than from not being able to get hard, is what I've read. Anyway, um, and I think now is kind of a good time for me to go into some of my background. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I am definitely not a psychologist of any kind, and everything I say is coming from a layperson. So please just know that I am a sponge for knowledge, and that's the only reason why why I'm talking about any of this, is because I've sponged up some knowledge and I'm kind of spitting it out. I am never considered an expert, so please take everything I say from that perspective. So anyway, a cock cage is a very, very interesting tool to use with your cock, with your stag, because it creates even more ache than just sitting there with a hard on waiting. It is even more intense because their body wants to get hard. Their body wants to feel that anticipation, that pleasure, that throbbing, that aching. They want to feel that. And then when you deny their body that piece of it, it is so much more intense, especially when it comes off. Um, but it's a good way to assert control when you're not with them, when you're not, like, when you're over there playing, your control is still over here in the form of this toy, this inhibitor. This is not something that my husband and I necessarily need, but it has given us moments of extreme, like, interaction and fun. My husband loves to be a part of this, a part of my pleasure and his denial. It's kind of the whole dynamic behind what we do. So it's just one more way to assert that dominance, assert that control, assert that extra edge. Um, and it's something that not everything that's out there to be played with is something that everybody should be should be comfortable with. You need to find the dynamic in your relationship that works. That being said, if it's something that somebody's interested in and you hadn't really thought about it and you don't know what it would feel like, take it for a spin. Maybe. I'm not saying you have to, like, obviously, that because everything I say is, coming from a space, but take everything and use that to explore. Use that to find the way. Because it's not, there's all kinds of ways that we can create intimacy and create connection that don't necessarily have to be physical touching. Every time your cock strains to get hard, you're thinking about the fact that I won't let you get hard. And I think that's so mentally stimulating, so mentally like part of the package of all this. Every time, because there's a lot of men who have never really, they don't like cum. They don't like, it's kind of an ick thing. But in that moment, when she's pushing your head down into her crotch so that you can lick up every last drop of what was left for you, I don't think it's about the cum at that point. I don't think it's about the ick factor. I don't think it's something that you would have done. But in that moment, you are trying to be so incredibly pleasing. You are trying to be so incredibly submissive, so incredibly detailed in how you get her satisfied. The same thing is true. Every moment you can feel her control. Every moment you can feel her desire over your body is got to be mentally stimulating. But you tell me. Thank you so much for listening to the Pineapple Pinup, the Hot Wife Life podcast. I am so grateful. You can check out my Insta profile in the show description, and you can, email me, pineapplepinuppod@gmail.com. You can reach out to me any way you want. I am here for any questions and any topics you want to go over.